Hello everybody, it's Mike Levin on Wednesday, September 7th, 2016 at around 6 p.m. And I thought I'd share with you today my major geek score during lunch today that I got from the Museum of Mathematics on Madison and 27th Street. My Distichus triacontahedron, I think I got that right, or more commonly known as the 120-sided die. This is the largest number of sides that can be on a fair die, with every side being the same shape as every other side. And apparently each number and the number exactly opposite on the other side add up to 121. And I believe around each one of these crests, all these numbers add up to the same total number, no matter how you turn it. And I read from the company who made this, because I researched it. I bought a 60-sided die not too long ago from, I think it's called the Dice Company. I have the paperwork still here that came with it. It's the Dice Lab. And, I read about it on their website. I casually thought about buying it, but I didn't. Just one more thing to buy online that I didn't need to buy. But then, of course, I saw it during lunch, and I just had to get it because the 60-sided die went over so well with Addie. And she was like, "Is that as big as it gets?" And I'm like, "No, there's a 120-sided die, and it's the largest it can be made while still working as a fair die." And she was interested in it, so we have the 60-sided one in green, and now I have the 120-sided one in red. And it has no real practical use. It's not like a 20-sided die in Dungeons and Dragons, which has, unlimited use. But it's fun. And there's a lot of math principles I can figure out about it, relationships between where the numbers are located and how things add up. So it'll be worth it for Addie's education. And I got a red one because complement to green, so I'll work in complementary colors, why I chose the red one, and all sorts of wonderfulness. Last night my box of goodies had arrived that I ordered from a company that I believe is called All in the Box, and I had ordered what I thought were Buckyballs at a really good price, but they turned out to be really, really tiny, much tinier than I expected, neodymium magnets. But there were a lot more than I had visualized too. So I was able to curl them around and build them into a tube and teach Addie about carbon nanotubes and the filaments that'll be woven together to create space elevators. So that was fun. And some of the other really fun things in that box are more of the tiny microscopes that people use for checking for counterfeit money, but it's got a great bright LED and an ultraviolet LED, so it's extremely good for hunting tardigrades on moss and lichen. I got solar-powered robotic cockroaches, and I got, I think they call it smart putty, although I'm not sure what's so smart about it, except that it's full of I guess magnetic, particles, so that it interacts with magnets and you can move putty around with a magnet. That's pretty cool. I guess that's the smart part. I got the expected size Buckyballs in rainbow colors, which I haven't even opened yet. Those will be for Addie. And let's see. I think there was some other stuff in there, but that hits the highlights. And it's really interesting that a whole box of stuff like that is still pretty cheap, because it's closeouts, and they actually shipped it from China. That impressed Addie very much. She's like, "Did they ship it from Chinatown or China?" And I'm like, "No, the real China." And it only took about a week to arrive, which is pretty amazing. And let's see, so yeah, we'll have a fun weekend going through that stuff. Point of this video, not much, just showing off some stuff that I had got recently that I'm working into Addie's education. I had to teach her Dungeons and Dragons for a class that she was signed up for, probability game math. And it's not really reasonable to teach Addie full Dungeons and Dragons, as it's really quite involved. But I did teach her what happens when you try and do something, and the Dungeon Master sets the probability level of it likely to occur, and then you roll the dice and see how you do, whether you achieve it or not. And she really latched onto that, and I think I have well prepared her for her game math probability homeschooling class. She's taken to the ideas, and she likes to roll dice when she tries to do stuff to see what her odds are of being able to do it. I guess that's sort of a mixed lesson there, but still, probability, yay. That ties in with Gravity Falls. The thing that turned her onto that was the episode of Gravity Falls, which is a wonderful Disney cartoon on XD, which only ran for 2 seasons, but it was brilliantly done, brilliantly wrapped up, and it's one of these cartoons that has all the smarts that go into things like Adventure Time and Bob's Burgers, but actually intended for kids, truly kid friendly, and it's amongst one of my favorite cartoons of all time. And they had the Dungeons and Dragons episode where infinity-sided die brings to life the wizard from the game, whose name is Probabilitor, and really set a really good framework for getting Addie involved in this stuff. And boy, this stuff, man. I showed her E.T. a few months ago now. I should probably show it to her again. But I've been watching all this different stuff that delves into my era of the 80s. Of course, Stranger Things, the Netflix original, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Went going through that first season that opens up with a game of Dungeons and Dragons. And now I am reading, or really listening to, Ready Player One, having already read the book with having received a recommendation from a friend of mine and prior boss, Brendan from Flying Point Digital, told me I should really, having made a few references to 80s things, he says, I really got to read Ready Player One. And so I did, and I loved it. And now that I'm an Audible subscriber, I use this month's credit on Ready Player One, and I am thoroughly enjoying listening to it. That's what I would be doing right now if I weren't making this video. And that has countless references to Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, you might say Dungeons and Dragons is sort of like the super theme of the whole thing, because this Oasis world, which is kind of like a future internet World of Warcraft Second Life type thing, is based in great part on the concepts of Dungeons and Dragons and player characters and dungeon masters and all that. So yay, go 80s. They're turning that into a movie created by Steven Spielberg, who is going to edit references to himself out of the movie. Hopefully they won't edit out references to Will Wheaton. I am enjoying listening to the narration of Ready Player One, especially the chapter I had just been up to, where I realized suddenly, having heard Will Wheaton's name in the narration, that was just read by Will Wheaton. Very meta. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Yeah, so we're living in the age of the geek, and I think I'm making some really good decisions, at least partially geekifying Addie. of course, the decision on whether to go the whole way into confirmed geekhood will be her decision, but I will equip her with all the geek accoutrements for just in case she goes that route. And wow, I just really love this stuff and the interaction with Addie over this stuff. I keep a bunch of toys on my desk at the office, which she's always interested in, and I show them to her, and then when her interest is rekindled, I bring them home, which I'm currently doing with this puzzle. I have a few of the pieces here. There's about 6 pieces total, but they fit together into a cube. It's a puzzle that we bought in Puerto Rico. So when we went into one of these Puerto Rican gift shops, I was like, oh, do you have boxes with secret compartments? And they're like, no, not any left right now, but we do have puzzles. I'm like, show me your puzzles. And so that's one that I have taken apart very successfully, but not put it together. So once Addie heard that, she's like, bring it home. And so I am, and we will put it together. Yeah, I guess I'm just rambling now, but that's what I was doing from the beginning, and yet you're still watching over 11 minutes in, so it's a little slice of my life. And I'm already thinking now about my phone call video chat with Addie a couple hours from now, just to sort of plan it out so I have stuff going. And I spent a little bit of time today as I was waiting for a task over here to finish. I was searching over here on lyrics that I think are important for Addie to know and appreciate, and I Googled up the Major General song from the Pirates of Penzance. I think that will be fun, along with the closely related Animaniacs song, like the nation's capitals and countries of the world, a little out of date, and the presidents of the United States, significantly out of date, but great for context. And that'll even show her a little bit of, you know, what's going on in the election. And these are some of the presidents that came before, and we have our first chance at a woman president, and she is someone who has been involved in politics for a long time, and this other Clinton they're referring to is a different Clinton. It was her husband from many years ago who had his turn at president, and now it's her turn. A lot of good lessons here, and thinking about these things more and more, it's just, you know, becoming clearer in my mind over time, I guess, as interesting things happen around us that sort of are catalysts and sort of crystallize and clarify my vision of what's important to bring up with her. So I have a little more walk to the subway, but I don't think I'll just fill it with filler. I got to a natural stopping point there. I'll try and get these videos running again. It's been a while since I did a walking talking head video through the streets of New York. I switched to my new iPhone. I wish I had a little mirror to hold up to show you how this looks like me holding my wallet open in front of me, but it's lighter than my old Android phone. I'll get used to it real quickly. It's actually kind of easier to hold, and only downside is that the YouTube upload will not happen so seamlessly in the background as it did on Android. I'm gonna have to, when I get ready to upload this, set it on a desk and sort of set it uploading and just leave it alone and not switch to other apps and stuff. So it's just like back in the days of the Amiga computer. The Amiga really did multitask, but had a bit of flakiness, and the Mac didn't, but it was quite solid. Here we are 30 years later, and Android really does multitask, but is a little bit flaky, and iPhone doesn't and is very stable, but to do simple things like an upload, you can't do it in the background and switch to other tasks. I guess that has ramifications on like battery life and a bunch of things that Apple has become known for, but Apple is not a big enabler of multitasking. And that could be the whole subject of a whole nother video, because multitasking is always a mixed bag. It's not the great thing of wonderful that so many people make out, it's often a source of things going wrong and unnecessary complexity and otherwise simple tasks. But you're never not multitasking for real, because there's always subsystems back there doing their thing while the main processor is doing its thing. And it feels like single tasking, but you know, the phone's recording video as I'm walking and talking. Is that really single tasking? The thing is that single tasking is really tightly controlled multitasking, where your subsystems are told to do their thing and you're isolated from all the details, and you're prevented from a certain type of multitasking where you change the primary foreground task sort of willy-nilly, interrupting things that maybe are best not interrupted. And platforms like Android take the attitude that we'll just make it work, and platforms like iPhone take the attitude, well, we'll suspend it, and when you get back to it, you get back to it. And that's a kind of a big platform difference. I'm taking up Apple again because I like the Apple platform. It feels like home to me at this point, and everything becomes subtly easier. But there are a little handful of things that are just more possible on Android. And I guess I'll wind it up there for real this time. I'm getting close to my subway entrance. Yeah, so that's it. Thanks for joining me. Hope to talk to you soon, and don't forget to subscribe.
Doing pizza hurry and off price and all this other